I think it's bad for our country, and I am sad to see minorities make so much of themselves as a hyphenated America.
Old Hollywood is often remembered for its glamour, fame, and unforgettable performances, but beneath the glitz lies a darker side. The golden era of cinema was also a time where racism and discrimination were rampant, shaping the way many actors and actresses treated their peers, both on and off the screen. Some of the biggest stars from that era, known for their talent and fame, also had views and actions that were deeply problematic, reflecting the prejudices of their time. These attitudes didn't just stay behind closed doors. They influenced the way films were made and the careers of others in the industry. In this video, we'll take a closer look at 10 of these iconic figures, exploring how their racist beliefs and actions tarnished their legacies. It's a powerful reminder that even legends are not exempt from the flaws of their time. Let's dive into the history that Hollywood often prefers to overlook. Number 10. John Wayne. John Wayne, an iconic figure in Hollywood and the American film industry, was a symbol of rugged masculinity and traditional values, but his personal views on race have sparked significant controversy. Despite his widespread fame and numerous legendary roles, Wayne's attitude toward race, especially regarding African American actors, reflected the racial prejudices of his time. When questioned about his own hiring practices, Wayne made it clear that while he didn't actively discriminate against black actors or crew members, he also didn't go out of his way to hire them. He stated, "I've directed 2 pictures, and I gave the blacks their proper position. I had a black slave in the Alamo, and I had a correct number of blacks in the Green Berets. If it's supposed to be a black character, naturally I use a black actor. But I don't go so far as hunting for positions for them." His comments reveal a problematic view. He recognized the importance of diversity in roles when required, but also expressed that Hollywood's efforts to include black actors were often excessive or tokenistic. Wayne's reluctance to actively support racial equality in film suggests a deeper, troubling mindset, one that saw African American actors and roles as secondary, rather than as an integral part of the storytelling process. His statement, while reflecting the norms of his era, also underscores a more systemic issue within Hollywood, where minorities were often limited to stereotypical roles or overlooked entirely. As time has passed, Wayne's words have left a stain on his legacy, challenging the way we view both his career and his place in Hollywood history. Number 9. James Stewart. James Stewart, one of Hollywood's most beloved leading men, known for his roles in films like It's a Wonderful Life and Rear Window, has also faced criticism for his own racist attitudes and actions throughout his career. While Stewart's public persona often portrayed him as a humble, decent man, it's essential to look beyond the on-screen image to understand the complexity of his views, particularly in terms of race. Stewart's involvement in World War II, where he served as a bomber pilot, is often highlighted as a testament to his character, yet it's his views on race that have raised concerns in modern times. In private, Stewart made several comments that reflected the racial prejudices common in his era. He, like many of his contemporaries, was raised in a time where segregation was still prevalent, and such attitudes often seeped into personal views and professional decisions. One notable example occurred in the making of the film The Philadelphia Story, 1940, where Stewart was reportedly reluctant to share scenes with African American actors, despite their significant roles in the production. He was also known for his discomfort with the idea of integrating black actors into mainstream films in a way that could challenge traditional racial boundaries. Stewart's lack of initiative to address or confront racial inequality was also evident in his reluctance to support civil rights causes or advocate for greater diversity in Hollywood. His silence on these matters contrasted with the more progressive stances of some of his peers, such as Sidney Poitier, who was actively pushing for change. While Stewart's legacy as an actor remains solid, the undercurrent of racism in his personal and professional life tarnishes the legacy of a man otherwise admired for his everyman charm and moral compass. Number 8. Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston, the legendary actor known for his iconic roles in Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments, was a prominent figure in Hollywood for decades. However, his legacy is marred by his controversial views on race and the actions he took during his life that reflected a deep-seated racism. Heston's career was not just defined by his powerful performances, but also by his outspoken political beliefs, which, over time, came under scrutiny for their alignment with racist ideologies. One of the most glaring examples of Heston's racial views surfaced when he became involved with the National Rifle Association, NRA, in the 1970s. He served as president of the organization and became an ardent advocate for gun rights, often linking these beliefs to his larger conservative pro-segregation stance. His later involvement in the political landscape, particularly his support of the Republican Party and its often racially charged policies, drew criticism from civil rights groups. Heston's actions in the 1960s also raised questions about his attitude toward race. Despite his early support for the civil rights movement, his views became increasingly controversial as time passed. He was reportedly opposed to the idea of black actors being cast in leading roles in films and showed discomfort with any challenge to the racial status quo in Hollywood. In 1999, he was involved in a public dispute with the late comedian Richard Pryor, who made jokes about Heston's involvement in the NRA and his connections to racial issues. While Heston made significant contributions to cinema, his public alignment with racial conservatism and resistance to racial progress casts a shadow over his legacy, making it difficult to separate his iconic roles from his deeply problematic personal beliefs. Number 7. Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen, the king of cool, known for his roles in Bullitt and The Great Escape, is often celebrated for his rugged on-screen persona and his contributions to action cinema. However, the actor's personal life and attitudes toward race have been subjects of criticism, shedding light on the darker side of his legacy. While McQueen was admired for his rebellious spirit and independence, he also struggled with complex racial attitudes, especially during his rise to fame in the 1960s and 1970s. McQueen grew up in a rough neighborhood where he had early encounters with racism, but this did not always translate into progressive views as he entered Hollywood. His career, marked by intense and physical roles, also revealed instances of racial prejudice and intolerance. One of the more controversial aspects of McQueen's personal life was his treatment of his African-American co-stars. During the filming of The Great Escape, 1963, McQueen reportedly refused to share screen time with black actors, even going as far as making racially insensitive remarks. Similarly, he was known to have had a difficult relationship with several prominent black actors throughout his career, which fueled rumors about his racial biases. While McQueen was known to have had a few close relationships with African Americans, such as with stuntman and close friend Bud Ekins, it's clear that his attitudes toward race were often contradictory. McQueen struggled to reconcile his own experiences with race and racism in the Hollywood system, leaves a complicated legacy. While his undeniable talent and iconic roles continue to inspire generations of fans, his actions and comments regarding race serve as a reminder of the biases that existed even among the most celebrated stars. His story highlights the complicated intersection of fame, personal beliefs, and racial inequality in the film industry. Number 6. Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson, one of Hollywood's most celebrated actors, known for iconic roles in films like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Shining, and A Few Good Men, has long been revered for his charismatic performances and complex characters. However, his legacy is not without controversy, particularly when it comes to his attitudes towards race and his public actions that have been deemed racially insensitive. Nicholson's most infamous moment in relation to race came in the 1970s, when he was involved in an incident during the making of the film Chinatown, 1974. During a scene in which his character was required to interact with a Chinese-American character, it is reported that Nicholson used racially charged language, and displayed uncomfortable attitudes toward his co-stars of color. These actions were reportedly brushed aside at the time, but the incident reflects a broader pattern of problematic behavior, especially during the era in which he rose to fame. In interviews, Nicholson has also been accused of making off-color remarks that perpetuated racial stereotypes. His comments, often made in jest or as part of his notorious bad boy persona, have reflected racial insensitivity, including remarks about African American actors and other minorities. While Nicholson has been quick to claim that these comments were not meant to be taken seriously, the frequency of such remarks paints a concerning picture of how deeply ingrained these biases were in his behavior. Despite these controversies, Nicholson's career continued to flourish, and he remains an icon in American cinema. Yet, his racial insensitivity has been a stain on his legacy, demonstrating how even the most admired figures in Hollywood can perpetuate harmful attitudes and perpetuate inequality in the entertainment industry. Number 5. Bill Murray. Bill Murray, known for his roles in beloved films like Groundhog Day, Ghostbusters, and Lost in Translation, is widely regarded as one of the most talented and unique comedic actors of his generation. However, his career has also been marred by incidents that have led to allegations of racism and insensitive behavior, highlighting the complexity of his public persona. One of the most notable controversies surrounding Murray's attitude toward race occurred in 1984 during the filming of Ghostbusters. Murray's treatment of his African-American co-star, Ernie Hudson, who played Winston Zeddemore, has been described by Hudson himself as racially insensitive. According to Hudson, Murray exhibited condescending behavior, often undermining his character's importance and making him feel as though he was not as integral to the story as the other members of the cast. This dynamic reflected a broader issue in Hollywood, where minority characters were often sidelined. But Murray's actions pointed to an underlying disregard for his co-star's role. In addition to this, Murray's past behavior during public appearances and in interviews has sometimes crossed the line into racial insensitivity. He has made offhanded comments and jokes about race which, though possibly intended as humor, have raised concerns about his understanding of the social dynamics surrounding race and privilege. While some of Murray's comments may have been framed as irreverent humor, the impact of such remarks on marginalized communities is hard to ignore. Despite his immense popularity and accolades, Murray's track record with race relations reveals that his career is not without its complications. While his work continues to be celebrated, the criticisms of his behavior serve as a reminder of how Hollywood has often overlooked the importance of diversity and the harmful consequences of perpetuating racial stereotypes. Number 4. Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen DeGeneres, known for her long-running daytime talk show, The Ellen DeGeneres Show, built her career on promoting positivity, kindness, and inclusivity. However, in recent years, her reputation has been tarnished by allegations of racism and a toxic work environment. While DeGeneres has been lauded for her role as an openly gay woman in Hollywood, some of her actions and public comments have raised serious concerns about her attitudes toward race. One major incident that highlighted DeGeneres' racial insensitivity occurred in 2018, when she invited the controversial former President George W. Bush to sit next to her at a Dallas Cowboys game. DeGeneres defended their friendship on air, stating, "We're all different, and I think that we should respect each other's differences." While some interpreted this as a message of unity, others criticized DeGeneres for downplaying Bush's role in policies that disproportionately harmed minority communities, especially African Americans. The incident sparked backlash from viewers, particularly in light of her past advocacy for social justice causes. Additionally, DeGeneres has been accused by former employees and colleagues of fostering a toxic and racially insensitive work environment. Multiple reports have surfaced about racial microaggressions and unequal treatment of employees of color on her show, leading to an internal investigation in 2020. Several staff members, including Black employees, reported feeling marginalized, underappreciated, and subjected to unfair treatment. These allegations painted a stark contrast to the image of kindness and inclusivity that DeGeneres had carefully cultivated over the years. While DeGeneres remains a popular figure in entertainment, these controversies have forced many to reevaluate the true extent of her commitment to equality and inclusion, especially when it comes to race. Number 3. Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld, the celebrated creator and star of Seinfeld, is often regarded as one of the most influential figures in television history. His quick wit and observational humor have made him a household name. However, despite his success, Seinfeld's views and actions concerning race have occasionally sparked controversy and raised questions about his stance on diversity. One of the most prominent controversies involving Seinfeld and race occurred in 2013, when he made comments about race and political correctness during a radio interview. Seinfeld was critical of the modern climate surrounding race and humor, particularly the notion that certain jokes were off-limits. He specifically mentioned that he avoided performing at colleges because the students were too politically correct. This statement was widely interpreted as him dismissing the concerns of people who felt that comedy should be more sensitive to issues of race and identity. Seinfeld's show Seinfeld, while groundbreaking in many ways, was also criticized for its lack of racial diversity. The show, which featured a predominantly white cast and few characters of color, reflected the racial landscape of the 1990s in Hollywood, where representation of minority groups was limited. Seinfeld, however, has defended the show's lack of diversity, claiming that the characters on Seinfeld were simply representative of his own life in New York City, and that the absence of Black or Latino characters was not intentional. Additionally, Seinfeld's relationship with race became a topic of discussion when he was accused of trivializing Black culture. In 2007, he was criticized for making jokes about African American culture during a stand-up routine, leading some to question whether he truly understood the complexities of race in America. Despite these controversies, Seinfeld's overall career has continued to thrive. However, the racial insensitivity surrounding some of his public statements and his body of work continues to be a topic of discussion. Number 2. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney, one of Hollywood's most beloved actors, known for his long career in films like Breakfast at Tiffany's and The Black Stallion, also has a deeply problematic legacy when it comes to race. While his talents were undeniable, Rooney's involvement in racial stereotyping, particularly through his portrayal of Mr. Yunioshi in Breakfast at Tiffany's, has left a lasting stain on his career and reputation. In Breakfast at Tiffany's, 1961, Rooney played the role of Mr. Yunioshi, a Japanese-American character, in what is widely regarded as one of the most egregious examples of racial stereotyping in Hollywood history. His portrayal, with exaggerated accents, buck-toothed prosthetics, and exaggerated mannerisms, was deeply offensive and reinforced harmful stereotypes about Asian people. Rooney's performance was widely criticized for its racism, and even though he later apologized, the damage was done. The character of Mr. Yunioshi became a symbol of how Hollywood often reduced minority characters to caricatures, perpetuating negative portrayals for comedic effect. While Rooney defended his role by explaining that he didn't see the character as offensive at the time, the portrayal demonstrated a glaring lack of cultural sensitivity. Moreover, despite having a long and celebrated career, Rooney continued to participate in films that involved racially insensitive content and did little to challenge the norms of the era when it came to race representation in Hollywood. Rooney's later comments and actions also highlighted his ignorance toward racial issues, as he was often dismissive of the concerns raised by marginalized groups. Although he had a successful career, Mickey Rooney's racial insensitivity in both his professional and personal life remains a blemish on his otherwise distinguished legacy. Number 1. Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn, one of the most iconic actresses in Hollywood history, was celebrated for her fierce independence, sharp wit, and numerous award-winning performances in films like The African Queen and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. However, her legacy is not without controversy, particularly regarding her views on race. While Hepburn is often remembered for challenging gender norms and defying the typical roles women were given in Hollywood, some of her personal beliefs and actions reveal a more troubling side, particularly when it came to race. Hepburn grew up in a time of racial segregation and was deeply influenced by the social attitudes of her era. Reports from her contemporaries and colleagues suggest that Hepburn was sometimes dismissive or insensitive when it came to issues of race and diversity. One of the more notable instances occurred in the making of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, 1967, a film addressing interracial marriage and racial prejudice. While the film was progressive in its approach to these topics, Hepburn's personal interactions on set with her black co-star, Sidney Poitier, have been described as somewhat patronizing. Though she and Poitier had a professional and respectful working relationship, there were moments when Hepburn seemed out of touch with the complexities of race relations, often making statements or jokes that suggested a lack of understanding or empathy for the struggles black people faced. Additionally, Hepburn's social circle and personal views occasionally reflected the racial biases prevalent among the elite of her time. While she worked with some black actors, including Poitier, her overall approach to racial diversity in her career was limited, and she rarely spoke out about civil rights or racial inequality. Though Hepburn's on-screen roles often showcased her as ahead of her time, her personal views and actions on race reveal a more complicated and problematic side to her legacy. These stars may have defined an era, but their troubling views on race serve as a stark reminder of Hollywood's past. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insights into the hidden histories of Tinseltown's golden age.